The voice asked how long that team from Celestial had already been there. A girl with light brown hair, holding an orange can of drink in her hand, answered, which is about 45 minutes. She assumed they were still fighting on the first floor. She said that even though the guild head and the vice guild head were with them, it definitely wouldn't be easy. The brown-haired guy said that there were a lot of people here who just came to watch. He said that there had never been so many people here since the opening of the dungeon. The dark-haired guy replied that it went without saying, and some of them specially came to see the guild head and the vice head of the Celestial Guild. He said that some people had come to be the first to hear the news, and regardless of whether Celestial could successfully pass the dungeon, those people might also ask them about the situation after they came out. The brown-haired guy replied that Celestial's challenge to Disastrous Graveyard on an insane difficulty level had long been a hot topic of discussion. He said that now they can only wait and see if they can win. The main character and his group emerged from a red portal in the shape of a skull. The dialogue box says, "Welcome to Disastrous Graveyard's final floor, Floor 3. You will soon face the terrible anger of the boss, Wailing Ghoul." In front of them was a staircase spiraling downwards. Dialogue box, due to the effect of the disaster, dead skeletal soldiers will revive after 12 seconds every time Wailing Ghoul's HP decreases by 30%. It will summon an elite necromancer to the battlefield. Wailing Ghoul can revive all dead skeletal soldiers within a 5-meter radius every 10 seconds. The main character was looking ahead with a serious face. At the bottom of the stairs stood a large skeleton in black robes, shrouded in purple flames. In one hand, he held a human skull. The dialogue box says, "When Wailing Ghoul has only 30% of his HP left, all the undead of floors 1 and 2 will revive and re-enter the battlefield via the teleporters." Purple flames radiated from the monster's mouth and empty eye sockets. The dialogue box says, "Completion condition, give it your all and vanquish the boss, Wailing Ghoul. Bring an end to this terrifying disaster." A person from the Ling Si group said that there was a terrifying wind coming from inside. Blue Cloud said with a smirk that the boss of this dungeon was right below them. He asked about their meeting again. He said that this time, they would have to withstand the attacks of these skeletons by clearing a path and going down, and the resurrected skeletons they killed would also continue advancing with each wave. Blue Cloud recalled how he and his group fought with skeletons while going down the stairs. He said that the last time they challenged the increased difficulty of the dungeon, they had great difficulty getting to the boss, but they had to deal with both the resurrected soldiers behind them and the boss' terrifying magic damage in the end. Whale said that then, unexpectedly, after they had lowered the boss' health by 30% with great difficulty, his first summon went off. He said that they didn't expect the elite necromancer to keep summoning skeletons, and by then, they were no longer able to even touch the edge of the boss' clothing. The white-haired guy exclaimed in fright that it was too difficult. Whale said there was nothing but an absorbing sense of helplessness from drowning in waves of corpses. He turned around when he heard the protagonist's voice. Ling Si offered to let him be the one to distract the skeletons along the way. The white-haired guy exclaimed in surprise that he was going to do it alone. Blue Cloud laughed and said that he was waiting for him to say it. With a big smile, he said that if he could use his top-time moves and lure all the skeletons down on his own, then he would help him and lure the boss up. Putting his hand on his shoulder, he said that they would separate the boss and the monsters, and then they would have a better chance of winning. The main character thought that the method he was talking about was a strategy for completing this dungeon from his previous life. He thought that it looked like he had planned to do this from the beginning, and he had underestimated him. The main character replied that he had also thought about it, but their coordination is very important. He said that if he lured all the skeletons to the lower area where the boss was, and something went wrong with his coordination, he would drown in a wave of corpses in less than 3 seconds. Blue Cloud folded his arms and asked if he doubted his abilities. Ling Si replied with a smile that his strength was unquestionable. He said he would take action without slowing down. The girl in the white wizard's hat exclaimed in surprise that he had disappeared. The white-haired guy exclaimed in surprise that he actually went alone. Whale asked Blue Cloud if he could do it alone. He said that the number of skeletons on this spiral staircase is no joke. He asked if he should help him. Blue Cloud replied with a grin that there was no need. He asked if he had forgotten about the video that Hammer showed them, which showed the Battle of Ling Si when they passed Broken Buddha. He added that based on their work together up to this point, he believes his true strength is much greater. He suggested that we just observe his actions. Ling Si jumped down the spiral staircase. The crowd of skeletons below looked up at him, reaching out their bony hands. The main character was jumping down a ladder full of skeletons. A huge shadow loomed over the skeleton's face, and it looked straight ahead. Ling Si stabbed the skeleton's skull with the dagger, shattering it. He thought that he couldn't stop, because with so many skeletons, once he stopped, it would all be over. Kicking off the skeleton's skull with his foot, he thought that he should find the space for his next step in advance, the place where he should strike next, as well as the best route. The main character jumped forward, and there was a crowd of skeletons behind him. the white-haired guy said in surprise that it was beyond his comprehension, and he actually managed to lure all the monsters along the way alone. The dark-haired guy replied that his micro-movements and physical movements were as smooth as water. Whale started saying something about his movement. Blue Cloud asked him if he noticed it too. With a smirk and a frown, he said that his movement was constantly getting better. Ling Si jumped and thought that it was very quiet here. Frowning, he thought he could hear his own heartbeat. Looking at the skeletons, he wondered if he was used to it. The protagonist noticed that the movements of these skeletons were much slower than before. Grinning, he thought that his top time was much stronger than before. He jumped into the crowd of skeletons. The spiral staircase was empty. One person in the group noted that the skeletons at the top of the stairs had all gone down. Another said that this is a prime example of how to lure monsters to the side. Whale, looking down, said that the #1 guild posted videos of them going through the increased difficulty, and for the sake of strategy, he watched them many times. He said that clearing this floor relies solely on terrifying damage and defense values, and at the moment, the only players who have this much damage are this guild. Blue Cloud, holding a yellow magic arrow in his hand, replied with a smirk that it didn't mean that the insane difficulty had to be completed in the same way. Holding out his bow, he said that they had to be ahead of everyone else to set the record for insane difficulty. Ling Si landed on the ground and thought that he had arrived at the lower floor. There was a crowd of skeletons around him. Standing on the ground, he looked around. Frowning, he thought that he had finally met Wailing Ghoul. The monster held up a skull that was emitting purple magic, and above its head was a large purple magic circle with a picture of a skull in the middle. The skeletons surrounding him were trembling. Ling Si gave Blue Cloud the command to attack with a smirk. Blue Cloud drew a huge yellow magic arrow in his bow with a grin. The main character was standing in front of the dungeon boss, surrounded by skeletons. Tiana, who was throwing papers around, exclaimed in surprise that Ling Si and the guild leader of Celestial had entered the dungeon together. Tiana asked Wasabi if he was sure, and if he was right. Wasabi exhaled and said that as the captain of the 3rd Division, she knew less and less about the world outside. He said that this is already the hottest topic for discussion on the game's forum, and even the Vice Guild head is participating. Looking at the dialogue box, he added that their goal was obviously to set a record on the insane difficulty of the disastrous graveyard dungeon. Diana asked how Ling Si got to know Blue Cloud. She added that he wasn't the head of a small or medium-sized guild. Frowning tensely, she said that Blue Cloud guild head is in 4th place, Celestial. Tiana thought about how such an important person could shake up the entire game with a single sneeze, and even the head of their guild treated him with respect. She thought about how the relationship between the 5 major guilds was particularly sensitive right now, and the situation was tense. She thought that if the rumors of Ling Si and Blue Cloud's close acquaintance got out, it might cause misunderstandings. Ruko said that this is still Ling Si, and he has his own reasons for doing so. He said that he can't be understood by ordinary logic, and he believes that he belongs with people of this level. Wasabi said that his words made sense, and Ling Si's actions were always incomprehensible. He told Tiana to sit down and rest for a while. He closed one eye and smiled as he asked if she still thought that Ling Si was the same as normal players. Tiana paused for a moment and thought that he was right, and from the moment they met until now, Ling Si's actions couldn't be understood by ordinary logic. She spoke thoughtfully about the record on the insane difficulty of Disastrous Graveyard. She asked Wasabi if he thought they could pass it. She added that this is still the newest dungeon. Ryuko, still chewing, told her to relax. Tossing up a stick from his food, he said that it definitely wouldn't be a problem, and with Ling Si, they would definitely be able to handle it. He said they just had to wait for a system alert. Yellow energy rushed towards them from a spiral staircase, at the bottom of which the main character was standing, surrounded by skeletons. Ling Si frowned, illuminated by the yellow energy. The yellow arrow hit the boss's body, and it dropped the skull from its hand. The purple magic circle above it dissipated, and a dialogue box reported that Wailing Ghoul's spell casting has been interrupted. Blue Cloud Zia told him to go to him. The monster was crouched a little and turned around viciously. The dialogue box reported that it had attracted the hatred of Wailing Ghoul. The monster took a high leap to the top of the spiral staircase. The main character grinned and thought that Blue Cloud had attracted the boss's hatred. Glancing to the side, he thought that now he needed to contain them here on the lower level. In front of him was a crowd of skeletons. Blue Cloud shouted that the boss was coming. He shouted for everyone to get ready. A boss shrouded in purple energy appeared in front of them. Whale ordered the tanks to raise their shields and protect the mages. They obeyed. Blue Cloud, shooting yellow magic arrows from the bow that, until Ling Si came, damaged mages better not embarrass them. Yellow arrow and fire magic shot towards the monster. Blue energy began to gather in the boss' mouth. He used Terror Whale, firing many blue magic projectiles forward. Whale leaped forward. Frowning, he dispelled the blue magic in front of him with his sword and approached the monster. The boss used Mournful Spirit's Howl, releasing a stream of purple energy from its mouth pushing the whale away. The dialogue box reported that the fear effect was applied to it. Trembling, he noticed that it was an area-wide fear effect. He thought that Wailing Ghoul had more skills on insane difficulty. Whale was using Sacred Aura, and the dialogue box reported that it had been cleared of all negative effects. He shouted that the boss's skills were on cooldown, and now was the time. The boss was hit by yellow arrows and fire spells. Blue Cloud said that when the boss lost 30% of its health, they would need to abort its first summon. Whale agreed. A voice from the dialogue box asked the main character how he was doing. Ling Si, while fighting the skeleton, replied that he was fine. He told them to wait for him to come up. As he hopped up, he thought that he was using a backstab to head straight up towards the second level, and he needed to keep the skeleton's hatred at bay. Using Shadow Flash Blink, he hit the skeleton in the air in the back and thought that he needed to collect them in one place. Grinning, he thought it might be a good time. Using Quick Stab, he stabbed the skeleton in the back. He used Evil Spirit's invisibility, and the invisible Ling Si headed in the opposite direction. Climbing the railing of the spiral staircase, he thought that this way he would be able to reach the third level in the shortest amount of time, and the hatred would be transferred to his clone. The dialogue box reported that the skeleton hatred was removed from it. Smiling, he thought that all they had left was fear. The purple protagonist descended into the crowd of skeletons. Ling Si grinned as he hopped up. Underneath was the huge purple face of an evil spirit. The white-haired guy shouted to Blue Cloud that they would soon reach the 30% mark and the boss would start summoning. A cloud of blue gas came out of Wailing Ghoul's mouth, and Blue Cloud shouted at Whale to move away because it's corrosive air. Whale frowned and gritted his teeth, thinking that he hadn't expected the first summon on insane difficulty to come along with an attack like corrosive air. The dialogue box says, "You have been corroded. Your body is being ravaged by a deadly poison. You may detoxify the poison with an antidote potion." The monster used Necromancer's summons, and a huge skull appeared from the purple magic circle above it. Whale shouted that they had miscalculated, and he was afraid that they would not make it in time. The dialogue box reported that it was detoxified. Blue Cloud looked up in surprise. Behind Wailing Ghoul, the main character appeared swinging a dagger, and Blue Cloud shouted that they would make it in time. A cloud of dust swirled across the ground. The white-haired guy looked forward in surprise. Ling Si hit Wailing Ghoul in the back, and the guy exclaimed that the boss's skill was interrupted. Blue Cloud laughed and said that if he was even a little bit slower, he wouldn't have spared him. The main character, standing on the monster's shoulder, told the others to attack to help him divert the boss's hatred from him. Frowning, he told the boss that it was their turn to hunt him. He jumped off his shoulder, and Whale commanded the mages to continue dealing damage and pay attention to the distance between them and the boss. He told the tanks to pay attention to the boss skills hitting the area. Everyone obeyed. Ling Si told Blue Cloud and Whale to surround and kite the boss along with it. Blue Cloud agreed and told them, as two melee fighters, to be careful because getting even a light hit would be very painful. Whale told him that it was better for his damage to keep up with theirs. Wailing Ghoul noticed the approaching yellow energy. Whale used Wheel of Light, hitting the boss with yellow energy from the swing of his sword. Looking at Ling Si, he wondered if he wasn't affected by their attacks or if he was coordinating with them while they attacked. Looking at the protagonist who swung the dagger in the air, he thought that his movements were even stronger than when he was competing with them. He thought that his top time had improved again during this time in the dungeon, and the speed of his progress was frightening. Ling Si looked ahead with a serious face. Whale thought that someone capable of such an expression couldn't possibly be an ordinary person. He was surprised to think that he had the qualities to be the main support of the First Division. However, he remained in the Third Division of the Nebulous Guild. Frowning, he thought that he might be planning something else. Blue Cloud said it coordinates well with them. Whale agreed and asked if it didn't seem very strange for Ling Si to remain in the Third Division despite his abilities. Blue Cloud, laughing, replied that everyone has their own secrets, and he is not interested in why he stays in the Third Division, and he is only interested in him as a person. While shooting a yellow magic arrow from his bow, he said that if he joined them, then together with him and Whale, they would be like a tiger that grew wings. The yellow energy hit the boss in the chest, and Ling Si noticed that he had 60% health left, and the second summoning would start soon. When he heard the voice, he turned around. Blue Cloud shouted at him that they would work together to interrupt him. Wailing Ghoul let out a loud sound, the sound wave of which repelled its opponents. The main character replied to Blue Cloud that during the second summoning, small monsters will appear, which he will leave to him. He said that he and Whale would be responsible for interrupting it. He said that they also need to pay attention to the boss sonic attack, which he will soon use, and which can cause a mental shock debuff. The monster knocked them back with a sonic attack. Blue Cloud asked if it was possible that Ling Si had been to this dungeon before, and how did he have such a clear knowledge of the details. The main character replied with a smirk that his friend had heard his friend from Guild Number 1 talking about it. He said he paid him some money to ask around. Blue Cloud replied that it has a fairly broad network. The main character thought that his friend's friend was a convenient excuse. A voice shouted that the skeletons had been summoned. A purple stream of energy rushed towards the skeletons and smashed through one of their heads. The crowd of skeletons was enveloped in purple electricity. Blue Whale said with a grin to leave the skeletons to him. He told the main character to go help Whale interrupt the boss. Ling Si, running behind him, thought about how he had instantly destroyed the entire wave of skeletons that had just been summoned. Frowning, he thought about its strength and how it really was a #1 brute archer. Wailing Ghoul raised a bone arm above him, and above him was a large purple magic circle with a skull image in the middle. Whale used glorious light, and a stream of yellow energy rushed towards the boss. The boss blocked it with a purple barrier arm, which shattered under the attack. Whale shouted about the boss being restrained. He ordered an attack. Ling Si used quick stab and hit the boss with a dagger, giving it a blindness effect. The dialogue box says, Wailing Ghoul has been affected with blind, the summoning skill has been interrupted. The main character shout out to increase the damage. The mages raised their staffs. The boss's health level dropped noticeably, and he was surrounded by blue flames. A face of blue flame towered over him. The dialogue box says, Disaster strikes when Wailing Ghoul has only 30% of his HP left. All the undead of floors 1 and 2 will revive and re-enter the battlefield via the teleporters. Many skeletons and witches emerged from the portal. A guy with white hair shouted that the revived enemies from the first and second floors were coming. He added that they worked so hard to lower the boss health to 10%. The dark-haired guy said that he had heard that even the #1 guild here was pretty well beaten, and the waves of dead were like a flood that couldn't be dealt with. A girl wearing a white wizard's hat shouted that she had used up all the mana potions. The guy with the white hair asked how they would manage to break through them. Blue Cloud asked Ling Si how he planned to deal with the resurrected skeletons and witches. The main character replied that there was no way to deal with them. Blue Cloud exclaimed in surprise that this wasn't the time for jokes. Ling Si replied with a serious face that he wasn't joking. He said they didn't need to be dealt with. Blue Cloud asked what he meant by that. The main character took a fighting stance and said that he had the stacked attacks ability, and from the 3rd floor onwards, his attacks were never interrupted once. Next to his dagger was written, Stacked Attacks 2412. Blue Cloud smiled and said that he understood now. He shouted for everyone to do their best to coordinate with Ling Si. Blue Cloud shouted for the tanks to block the waves of undead and protect the mages behind them while they attacked. He shouted at the mages to use their remaining mana to cast their strongest spells. Wailing Ghoul was surrounded by a purple magic barrier. Thrusting their bow forward, they shouted for them to break through the boss magic shield. The explosion hit the Wailing Ghoul, shattering its magic barrier. Blue Cloud told the main character that they were counting on him. Kicking off from the ground, Ling Si leapt forward and frowned as he thought that he would give him a taste of the damage from nearly 3,000 stacked attacks. A man in the crowd asked how much time had already passed. Another replied that someone had been monitoring the time, and 1 hour and 33 minutes had passed. Another person said they haven't been out for so long. He asked if it was possible that they would pass it. The guy said that if they did pass it, they would break the guild's #1 record. He added that this is a record of insane difficulty, which greatly surpasses the guild's #1 record, which was set on increased difficulty. The armored man said that Celestial must have made this move in order to show off their strength, since the guild head and the vice head of the guild went into action. The portal says, Disastrous Graveyard Record, to be updated. He said that their challenge of insane difficulty has already caught the attention of many players, and if they pull it off, it will be a public success for Celestial. The main character landed with a dagger in his hand. A public announcement appeared above the record label. The dialogue box congratulated the team from the Celestial Guild. The crowd standing around the red portal noticed the dialogue box. The dialogue box lists the group members. Ling Si stood frowning. Blue Cloud and Whale stood surrounded by disappearing skeletons. The dialogue box listed Little Ab, usernames are hard to remember, Fire Coriferous Sight of Future, Stone Moon Philosopher, Onuo. Wailing Ghoul was cut in half. The skeletons around him began to disappear. The dialogue box says they have cleared the dungeon, Disastrous Graveyard, at Insanity difficulty, setting the first record for clearing Insanity. The main character stood surrounded by purple energy. He thought that because this race happened under the name of the Celestial Guild, the record belongs to Celestial, and he can't hide his name. Frowned, he think that even though the remuneration is quite ample, man fears fame, and after the news get out, it's inevitable that trouble will come knocking again. Blue Cloud laughed behind him and praised him for his good work. He told them that the record for insane difficulty was theirs. The white-haired guy exclaimed happily, smiling. Blue Whale said that if Ling Si hadn't lured the monsters down on his own, interrupted all 3 summonings, especially with his last strike, there was no way they would have been able to pass the insane difficulty. Ling Si replied that this is the result of everyone's efforts. Whale replied that he didn't have to be modest. The guy with the white hair agreed and shouted that his performance was just incredible. Holding up his fist, he said that they could post training videos with their movements. The main character replied that he was able to do this thanks to the excellent coordination of each of them. Blue Cloud looked at the huge dialogue box in front of him with a smile and said that the dungeon rewards had appeared, and as expected, there were a lot of equipment here. He told Ling Si that he would get the largest share. The main character closed his eyes and thought that the money that can be obtained in the dungeon is not something to look forward to, because one person can only get 50 silver at most. A girl in a white mage outfit exclaimed that she wanted this mage outfit. The other guy replied that there were 3 mages on their team and she would have to draw lots. Ling Si thought that if the experience was distributed according to the contribution to completing the dungeon, then he should get quite a lot. Surrounded by the yellow bill, he opened his mouth in surprise. Above his head, you can see that he has gained level 13. He thought that he had gained a level and a half, which wasn't bad. The mage girl noticed that he had raised his level. Blue Cloud chuckled and said that the contribution points for completing Ling Si are quite high. He said that news of it had most likely already spread everywhere. He called Ling Si back to headquarters. As he entered the red portal, he laughed, said that they had made a great profit here, and suggested that they come here again. He suggested that Ling Si go along with them. Blue Whale is sitting at a long table, and Whale and the main character are standing side by side. Whale told the main character that they would no longer thank him with words for the record in the dungeon. He said it was a remuneration that they had agreed on earlier. The dialogue box reported that the main character had received 3 gold coins from Whale. Ling Si thanked them. Blue Cloud asked him what he planned to do next. The main character replied with a smile that he would be returning to Nebulous and he needed to keep leveling up. He happily thought about how only the top 5 guilds could afford money like 3 gold. He thought that he could even afford to ask for twice as much next time. Blue Cloud sat there with a grim face. Whale frowned gravely. They looked at each other. Whale asked Ling Si what he thought of their guild. The protagonist paused for a moment and replied that their guild, ranked 4th among the 5 main guilds, was obviously very strong, not even to mention Blue Cloud and Whale. The main character mentally guessed what he was thinking. Whale said with a smile that he was very happy that Ling Si had such a high opinion of Celestial, and their collaboration had also brought them great pleasure. He said that if they didn't have an adorable thief like Ling Si with them, this mission wouldn't have been successful. He said he would tell you straight away. Whale said that he was extremely admired for his talent and strength, and he was wondering if Ling Si wanted to join the Celestial Guild. The main character, without turning around, raised his hand and, apologizing, reminded that he said that this was a one-time collaboration and he currently has no intentions to change the guild. Whale stiffened and told him that even though Celestial wasn't ranked 1st, they also had strict entry requirements, and he was extremely sincere in his invitation to join their guild, and he would be able to enjoy the best privileges. Ling Si thanked him for the invitation with a smile and said that just as he said, he had no intentions of changing the guild just yet. Whale said that if he wanted to join them, he would give him his position as the vice head of the guild. He asked what he thought. Ling Si frowned and thought that if this was his past life, then in this situation, he could agree without hesitation. But in this life, his goal is much higher than that, and he won't let things like this drag him down. The main character apologized and said that this is not what he wants. Blue Cloud told Whale that this is enough. He said they wouldn't force him. Ling Si thanked him for his understanding and said that he was leaving. Blue Cloud rose from his seat. Folding his arms across his chest, he said with a smile that he would not accompany him. The main character waved his hand and said that it was a pleasure to meet them. Blue Cloud and Whale stood with their backs to each other with grim expressions. Whale started talking about what if this person couldn't become one of them. Blue Cloud laughed. He said with a big smile that it meant it wasn't meant to be. Whale asked about the Wolf's Fang Guild's request for an alliance. Blue Cloud replied that it can resolve such issues on its own and it doesn't need to ask him about them. Whale frowned and said nothing. Blue Cloud thought that their next encounter with Ling Si would be as enemies. Raising the white cup of tea, the man asked in surprise that there was such a person in their guild. A girl in dark red clothes with dark hair and blue eyes said that she also received news from the captain of the 1st Division. Above her head, you can see that her name is Coco Lai, she is level 15, and she is the vice head of the Nebulous Guild. She said that he helped Blue Cloud of the Celestial Guild set the first record on the insane difficulty of the disastrous graveyard dungeon. She added that this thief named Ling Si seemed to have achieved outstanding results in the last monthly guild war. Raising the cup to his face, the man asked about what she said, that this thief was from their 3rd Division. Coco Lai replied that he was a subordinate of the new 3rd Division captain, Tiana. The man put the cup down on its saucer. He has lilac short hair, green eyes, and glasses. Above his head, you can see that his name is Hart Stillwaters, he is level 15, and he is the head of the Nebulous Guild. Sitting on the throne with his legs crossed, he told her to tell them both to come to him. A guy with dark hair in the crowd said it was that thief and he saw him come in here. A man with short blonde hair said that he had heard that he worked together with Blue Cloud. He added that he was also their captain and he couldn't have imagined that such a person would turn out to be a person from their 3rd division. Ruko told Ling Si that he had become very famous and on the way here he kept hearing others discussing him. Pointing his thumb at the door, he said that he made a big mistake by not taking it with him. He exclaimed that he had become even stronger again. Ruko said that now when they go through the dungeons together with Tiana, he can take all the damage on his own and now he has a deeper understanding of his transformation. He said there's something called one becomes unrecognizable after some days apart. The main character indifferently agreed with his story. Tiana told him that he made a big fuss this time and didn't even think about hiding his name. Exhaling, she added that he couldn't hide it. Standing next to the window where there was a crowd of people, she told him to look at the situation outside. She said that a lot of the guild members had come to see what was happening. Tiana asked if it bothered him. Smiling slightly, Ling Si said that there was nothing he could do about the fact that the result of completing the dungeon had to be assigned to the guild and the names couldn't be hidden. He added that the deal was worth it. He said he was still going to raise his pay next time. The main character said that these people will disperse after some time and there is no need to worry about them. Tiana repeated his last words angrily. Pointing her finger at him, she shouted that he was just running away from responsibility and he didn't even know how many private messages she had received today. She said that they were all asking about what her division had this guy named Ling Si, whether she could introduce them to him, and also that they wanted to ask a few questions about Ling Si. She exclaimed that it was very annoying as long as he kept things simple and could just turn off the sound of message notifications. Smiling, the main character opened one eye and said that he understood. Raising one eyebrow, Tiana asked how he even met Blue Cloud from Celestial. She reminded him that if he contacted people of this status, problems would follow. The main character started to answer, but a dialogue box appeared in front of Tiana and she asked to wait, asking what it might be at such a moment. The dialogue box says, Management Chat Group. Wasabi opened the door and called out to Tiana. He asked if she had seen the message in Nebulous Management Chat Group. The main character looked at him in silence and Ruko asked him questioningly. Frowning, Wasabi said that the guild head of Stillwaters wants to meet Tiana and Ling Si right now. Tiana looked at him with a dark frown. The sun was shining over the pillared arches. Ling Si said that, unexpectedly, their guild's headquarters are quite good and even more luxurious than Celestial's. Tiana repeated softly that they were doomed. The main character told her to calm down and that even if they want to find their fault in some cases, he will take all the responsibility on himself and this does not concern her. Tiana paled and replied that since he was a member of her 3rd division, she should be responsible for him. Frowning, she added that she had indeed given him a free hand and now that there were problems, she couldn't put all the responsibility on him. Ling Si silently glanced at her. Tiana narrowed her eyes and said that he should know that being able to create a large guild in Heavenland was an incredible achievement, and it was difficult for even small guilds to achieve a stable position due to the close competition. She added that as guilds get bigger, their economic reserves will also grow, and relationships based on benefits become more complex. Standing in front of the tall wooden door, she asked if he could imagine how rich the guild heads would have to be to become one of the top 5 guilds in the game. Tiana said that with their strength, if they wanted to find out a player's real-life identity and background, they could easily do so. Knocking on the door, she whispered to the protagonist that if they provoked them, they could easily crush them. A voice outside the door said to enter. Tiana and Ling Si walked through the door. The main character in his mind suggested that Tiana is so afraid because she has some problems with her family in real life, and she is afraid that they will affect it. Tiana announced that they were here. Lowering his gaze, Ling Si signed that he hadn't considered this and might have caused her trouble, and in that case, he should clear things up. Looking up, he could see Coco Lai and Stillwaters standing next to the bookshelves above. Coco Lai said that the guild head is upstairs. The Stillwaters looked down at them, and Coco Lai said they called them here because they had some questions for them. Stillwaters was sitting at a table with a book in his hands. Coco Lai, who was standing next to him, asked Tiana if, as the captain of the 3rd division, she had something to say. Tiana and Ling Si were standing at the opposite end of the table. Tiana, addressing the guild heads, said that this person was Ling Si. Ling Si interrupted her and suggested that we get straight to the point. He said that they wanted to ask questions of him, so there was no reason for them to drag Tiana into this. Stillwaters continued to stare at the book. Coco Lai said with a smirk that it was interesting. The main character said with a serious face that he knew they wanted to talk about collaborating with the Celestial Guild in a dungeon of insane difficulty. Tiana called out worriedly. Ling Si said that, in short, he needed money, and it happened that he had a few ideas about this dungeon, so he helped them complete the dungeon in exchange for a fee. Coco Lai asked if he knew that the person he was collaborating with was the head of Celestial's Guild, Blue Cloud. The main character replied with a serious face that he would serve anyone who paid him, and even if the #1 guild leader came to see him, he would accept the offer. He added that their guild doesn't have a rule that prohibits its members from accepting jobs. Coco Lai asked how he got to know Blue Cloud and how he knew how to pass the insane difficulty of the dungeon. Ling Si replied that they were introduced by a friend, and his ideas for going through the insane difficulty of the dungeon are all based on the information he gathered. Angered, Coco Lai asked why he had withheld his personal information. The main character calmly replied that he did it to protect his privacy and it's just a habit of his. Coco Lai slammed the table and asked how he, as a member of the Nebulous Guild, dared to offer to help others with a similar record which concerns the guild's reputation in exchange for money. Stopping her with a hand gesture, Stillwaters asked what was wrong with that. He said that since ancient times, those who are more capable get more, and this issue does not tolerate criticism. Coco Lai looked at him with a frown. Stillwaters said it wasn't hard to see that Ling Si was a capable person. Still looking at his book, he said that he had only called them to understand the situation, and that there was no need to discuss the matter further. He said with a slight smile that that was all. He told Tiana to stay because he had something else to discuss with her. Tiana obeyed. The main character said that he had one request, and he would leave after he voiced it. Stillwaters said they were listening to him. Ling Si said that he could achieve great things for the guild, and he needed special permission. He said that he wants to create an official independent team. He thought that even though he needed the guild's support in terms of resources, he had better not involve Tiana in this. Tiana stood there, her mouth hanging open in surprise. Stillwaters agreed. After closing the book, he said that he wanted to see the results within a month. He asked if that would suit him. Ling Si, with his hands in the pockets of his feet, guessed that he must have some demand. Stillwaters replied that if within 1 month the team he creates manages to get into the top 10 once in the list of best teams, then he will allow his independent team to gain permanent status. After being silent for a while, Tiana exclaimed worriedly about the best team list. Coco Lai grinned and said it was a good idea. She asked if he knew what the best team list was. The main character replied that he knew. When he left, he said that they would meet again in a month. They were all silent, watching him go. Tiana thought worriedly that the list of top teams was updated every week and was mostly occupied by professionals. Any team can enter the leaderboard by submitting an application, and the place that the team will occupy will be determined by the system according to the dungeons that they have completed this week. Each dungeon completed during this week will be given a score, which depends on the difficulty of the dungeon and the score for completing it. Tiana thought that, in fact, he would be up against countless other teams in the leaderboard, and moreover, the top 10 positions were always occupied by the top 5 guilds. Frowning, she thought that she couldn't have thought that the guild head wanted Ling Si's independent team to enter the top 10 in the leaderboard. She thought that it was almost impossible, and Ling Si should know how hard it is, and the guild head definitely makes things harder for him. Coco Lai frowned and asked if this guy really knew what a leaderboard was. Stillwaters turned to Tiana. Tiana worriedly said that Ling Si didn't want to cross him. Ignoring her words, he said that he had heard that Ling Si was specially accepted into the guild by her. He asked if it was true. Tiana replied that it was true, and then she wanted to accept Ling Si into the guild. Stillwaters asked if this meant that it was she who asked him, and not the other way around. She looked at him in surprise and after being silent for a while, said that it was true and it was she who asked Ling Si. Opening the book, Stillwaters said it was now free to go. He said that the 3rd division was an important source of new members for the guild and he would count on it in the future. Tiana bowed, obeyed, and said she was leaving. She closed the door behind her, and Coco Lai asked Stillwaters that he had asked this question in order to convince Ling Si that he was a spy. Without looking up from his book, he replied that it was true. Coco Lai, agreeing, said that if he had approached Tiana first, he might have had third-party intentions. She added that she had to admit that she didn't expect him to accept his demands so easily. Flipping through the pages of the book, Stillwaters said that a confident guy like him would definitely accept his demand. Looking at the book, he said that he was just curious about who he would take on his team. The main character entered the room that Ruko and Wasabi were in. When Ruko noticed him, he asked if they were making things difficult for him. Ling Si replied that he was fine. Wasabi asked if he was okay. Holding an orange tin can in his hand, he assumed that the guild leader wanted to know more about his background. Folding his arms across his chest, the main character replied that he did, and he also allowed him to create his own team, and if he could enter the top 10 in the team leaderboard, then he would make his team permanent. Wasabi asked in surprise about the top 10 in team leaderboard. Ruko raised his fist and suggested that he not waste any more time and start trying to break into the top 10. Wasabi nervously thought that if Ling Si wanted to create a team, he would do everything in his power to help him. He thought that he couldn't deny that Ling Si was constantly deleting it. Grinning, Wasabi thought that perhaps someone like him, who is able to make the impossible possible and constantly strives to become stronger, is someone who is more worthy of his pursuit. He thought that if necessary, he would even be willing to give up his position as vice captain. The door opened and Ruko, seeing Tiana, said that they had already heard everything from Ling Si. The main character asked if the guildmaster had detained her because he wanted to ask about him. Tiana walked past him and asked Ling Si to let her ask him a question. Ruko and Wasabi exclaimed in surprise. Turning around, she asked with a grim face if independence would really be better for him. The main character paused for a moment. He said that he was different from her and there was nothing holding him back. He said that he wanted to become independent because he was afraid that his detached nature would become a burden to her, giving her unnecessary problems and responsibilities. Tiana remained silent for a moment. Frowning, she said that she couldn't deny that she was afraid of the guild's influence, but the reason she was able to achieve what she had now was because of his help as well. She shouted that if he ever needed her, she would definitely help him. Her eyes widened in surprise. Tiana was silent with a surprised face. Ling Si glanced at her, slightly embarrassed. Ruko flashed a big smile and said it was great. Raising his fist, he shouted for them to become independent and achieve great things. The main character told him to calm down because they need to find 4 more people on the team to apply to team leaderboard, and they still need to find more people on the team. Smiling, Wasabi said that when the time comes, they can complete all the crazy difficulty dungeons they've completed before, and that should definitely help them with their team scores. Ruko, smiling, agreed and said that there are many dungeons with no set records, which are much easier than the crazy difficulty dungeons they passed. Wasabi said that they can also collect a set of equipment with high damage first, and this will also greatly help them surpass their dungeon records. The main character told Wasabi that he couldn't join the team because his skills weren't up to standard. Wasabi's face froze in surprise. Laughing, he assumed he was talking about his level. He said that it was fine and he would be able to raise it with Ruko. Ling Si with a grim face said that it wasn't about his level, but his skills that weren't very compatible. He said that at the moment, even Ruko can beat him, and they can't let that happen. The main character added that their team already has a thief, and they don't need 2 people with the same class yet. Wasabi looked downcast and said he understood. Ling Si told him that he hoped he understood that this wasn't about their friendship. As he left, Wasabi said he knew. Tiana, looking at them worriedly, wondered if Ling Si was being a little too tactless. After opening the door in front of him, Wasabi said that he wanted to fight the new team members after Ling Si found them. Turning around, he asked for one chance. He closed the door behind him. Tiana asked the main character where he would go now. Ling Si said he had to move out because he didn't have much time. Putting his hands in his pants pockets, he said that he needed to find an archer to join their team. The puddle reflected the nighttime forest. The man in the shoe stepped in a puddle, splashing water. Several people are running through the forest. One of them suggested splitting up. Another asked if he was able to find its location. He said he couldn't. Gritting his teeth, he said that since he was planning to challenge Dark Wolf's workshop, they would make sure that he wouldn't be lonely. A guy with white hair was running behind him. The gunshot grazed his head and his eyes widened in surprise. The guy fell to the ground and the others turned around. Another shot hit the other guy in the head. The boy swore as he ran away. The full moon was shining in the night sky. After hiding, he thought that he would probably be able to find it for a while, and he just needed to wait for the reinforcements from workshop to arrive. He wondered where he was attacking them from. A man placed a sniper rifle on a tree. A bird flew by, and the guy, noticing it, turned around in surprise. He tensed, noticing something. The shot hit him in the head and he fell to the ground. A rifle flashed in the tree. The dark-haired guy with the rifle straightened up. Above his head, it could be seen that his name was Pure Dark Feather and he was level 14. Looking down, he said, "Good game." The moon was shining over the city street. The girl, looking at a guy walking down the street with a rifle, exclaimed that he was a hot weapon-typed player. She said it was a rare archer profession with hot weapon. She said that besides the fact that their equipment has higher damage, it is very difficult to get it. A guy with dark hair asked if the heavy sniper rifle on his back was called a Celestial Falcon. He said that if he remembered correctly, the chance of it falling out was extremely low, and it could only be obtained in a higher difficulty dungeon. He said they were lucky to have seen this weapon live. The door to the tavern opened. A voice greeted the hooded man. He asked for a dark beer. The girl at the steam counter agreed, pouring beer into a beer glass. The guy sat down at the bar, flipping a gold coin. The girl handed him a dark beer. The girl served soda to another man, and he thanked her. The main character, standing next to the guy, said, "Heavy sniper rifle Celestial Falcon, black hood, tall and thin, likes to drink dark beer." He said that if his friend hadn't seen him enter this bar, he would never have been able to find his silhouette. The boy looked at him. Ling Si called it Pure Dark Feather. The guy said nothing. The main character thought that, just like the rumors say, he is an unsociable lone wolf, and the only taunt he uses against his opponents is GG. He didn't let himself be seen twice, he thought. Ling Si closed his eyes and apologized for interrupting him and said that he wanted to discuss working together with him. He thought that in his previous life, this unsociable guy had become the #1 ranged hot weapon in Heavenland. The main character thought that he was a great sniper and later even took first place in the professional assassin leaderboard because his opponents cannot detect where he is during the battle, and those who found out, he already shot through the heads. Holding a glass of soda, Ling Si told him that he wanted to invite him to join his team to participate in the team leaderboard. After shooting the glass in the main character's hand, the guy told him to get behind. Smoke was coming from the muzzle of the revolver in his hand. Ling Si said that it seems like he really doesn't like this form of communication. Letting go of the glass shards, he told him not to misunderstand him, and he's not one of the superstar seekers. He said that he just felt that he was very suitable to be on the same team as him. Turning around, he said that if he wanted to discuss it with him, he could meet him at the dungeon entrance of Ancient Machinery Cave tomorrow afternoon. With a small smile, he added that he was sure he would change his mind when he came. After remembering, the main character told him that if he wanted to upgrade his weapon, they could help him get the Shadow Killer Heavy Sniper Rifle. He thought that even in his previous life, everyone knew that Pure Dark Feather was a big fan of hot weapons, so he prepared himself before coming here. He smugly thought that Shadow Killer was currently one of the best sniper rifles in the game, and he definitely wouldn't be able to refuse his offer. Pure Dark Feather looked at him in silence. He said he was looking forward to seeing him tomorrow. The dialogue box informed Tom that he was out of the game and they were looking forward to his next login. Exhaling, Ling Si got up from the bed and said that every time he logs out of the game, he feels this tearing pain. There was an envelope on the table next to the bed. The main character opened it and, taking out a paper from it, realized that it was a school admission letter. He was surprised to think that he hadn't expected the old man to be serious when he talked about it during the meeting. The main character recalled how an old man told him that at his age, he still had to get a compulsory education and he would need to go to school to know more. He said he would help him apply to the school for free. Scratching his head, Ling Si thought that school seemed to start next month and he was afraid of upsetting the old man if he didn't go. Looking around, he asked where the old man was. The man loudly asked if he knew how much his son owed them. He said he understood that he was dead and asked what would happen to the money he owed them. A man in a red shirt was showing the old man a piece of paper. The old man apologized, holding a bag of groceries in his hand, and said that he really didn't know. The man said it was a paper signed by his son. He asked if he understood the situation now. The old man said, startled, that he understood. The main character ran outside and asked what they were doing. Frowning and clenching his fist, he demanded to let the old man go. The man furiously asked who he was to talk to him like that. The old man called out to Ling Si in a weak voice, and the man asked if he was the old man's grandson. The main character replied that he was his grandfather. The man grinned and asked if his grandson had come here to help his grandfather pay off his debts. The old man shouted worriedly that this was not so, he was not his grandson, and it was none of his business. The man pushed the old man away and shouted that he didn't care if he was his grandson or not, and today he would pay them back the $1 million that his grandson owed them. He said that if he couldn't, he would go with them and they would find out how much the old man's body parts were worth. Ling Si shouted to the man. The old man dropped the grocery bag on the ground. The main character stared gloomily ahead, standing behind the old man. The man stared back nervously. Ling Si thought that he needed to calm down and he wasn't in the game right now, and this man could easily kill him. He thought that if he had been an awakened one, things would have been different. The main character frowned and said that even if he killed them, they still didn't have $1 million right now. He said that if they gave them more time, they might be able to collect it. The man clenched his fists and paused for a moment. He agreed and said it wouldn't do them any good if they didn't get the money. He said that he was giving them 2 months, and that should be enough for them to raise the required amount. The man pointed his index finger at them with a grim grin and said that they should give him $1.5 million and no less. The old man asked in surprise why the amount had increased to $1.5 million. The man turned around and said that he was giving them 2 months to raise the money, and of course he had to add a percentage. He asked if it wasn't fair. He added that he is a very reasonable person. The man said that he didn't have time for nonsense and he needed to visit 2 more clients, and they would see each other in 2 months. He told them not to even think about moving because they could still find them whenever they wanted. The old man looked at him in horror. Ling Si put his hand on the shoulder of the trembling old man and asked if he was okay and if he needed to go to the hospital. The old man was muttering about how they couldn't find $1.5 million in 2 months. The main character thought that $1 million is not a small amount. He asked the old man if he knew what his son had spent that $1 million on. The old man said he didn't know, and he never told him. Ling Si told him to go inside first and leave the money problem to him. The old man turned around in surprise and asked if he had a solution. The main character thought that this is the real world, and there are always a lot of unexpected problems that suddenly arise. He answered in the affirmative with a serious face. Ling Si thought that he seemed to need to speed up. He thought that only level 15 players who had successfully awakened could activate the currency link function between the two worlds. Frowning, he thought that meant it was time for him to move forward with his plan. The next day, Ling Si thought that having a fixed team was incredibly important to him at the moment. He thought that this not only provided him with a quick level up, but also played an important role in making his plans for the future a reality. He decided to put together a team one step at a time and become stronger. Ancient Machinery Cave Dungeon Lobby. Ruko, noticing the main character, exclaimed that he had come. He said that he was very excited when he received his message yesterday, and he can finally go to the dungeon with him again. Folding his arms, he looked away and said that he was unlucky today and saw the demon as soon as he came. Ling Si interrupted him and said that it looked like they had already met each other. He asked Ruko to let him introduce him and said it was Tilly's, a battle mage. He explained that they had met before and she would join them in this dungeon. Tilly's folded her arms and asked why he was so late. She said that she only came because he said that she would be able to fight a pro. She asked when she said she would go to the dungeon with them. Ruko asked in surprise about her going to the dungeon with them. Ling Si told her that he hadn't lied to her and that person just hadn't come yet. He asked if she could help them with the dungeon. Tilly's replied that she didn't mind entering the dungeon if she could fight someone skilled. Ruko grudgingly asked why she was going with them. A guy nearby said that it looked like these two were his teammates. The main character, noticing that he was here, said that it was true and it was his teammates. Ruko asked in surprise, since when was there a person there? Pure Dark Feather said that he is only interested in the Shadow Killer sniper rifle and he hopes that he is a man of his word. Ling Si replied that this weapon can only drop when special conditions are met. He said that when it comes to completing the dungeon, he is very confident in their abilities, and if he has doubts, he can trust their abilities on his own. Tilly's frowned and thoughtfully repeated the words about testing their abilities. Pure Dark Feather pointed a finger forward. Ruko exclaimed in surprise when he noticed that he was pointing at him. Placing his hands on his waist, he shot a glance at Tilly's with a smirk and said that he had a good eye and he should know that he was very strong. Tilly's irritably asked why he chose a stupid child and if he looked down on her. Pure Dark Feather said that how much water a wooden bucket can hold depends on the length of its shortest plank. Tilly's agreed with a smile. Ruko couldn't understand the meaning of his words, asking why they needed water. Ling Si suggested that we have a small duel while no one is here. Ruko and Pure Dark Feather were standing opposite each other. The main character and Tilly's looked at them from the side. Ruko asked if he was going to use this sniper rifle. He said it was rare to see a person using a firearm. He said that he remembers that this equipment is very hard to get, so very few people decide to use it, but it really looks cool. Laughing, Ruko asked if his rifle didn't hit the ground when he sat down with it on his back. Pure Dark Feather looked at him irritably. Ruko called for a start by holding up his shield. He said that he wanted to try fighting against a sniper rifle. The sniper rifle on Pure Dark Feather's back started to disappear. The dialogue box reported a change of weapon. He said he wouldn't have to use it. Ruko was surprised to see Pure Dark Feather's movements. Ling Si and Tilly's watched them with interest. Two pistols appeared in Pure Dark Feather's hands, and he suggested that they start. The dialogue box reported a successful weapon change. The main character thought that he didn't expect him to use double pistols, and all he knows is that he is the best at using sniper rifles. He thought that he had to admit that dual pistols would allow for more agility in such a short-range fight than a sniper rifle. Pure Dark Feather slowly walked towards Ruko with two pistols in his hands. Tilly's frowned and said that this wouldn't do, and she had to fight this guy with a firearm. She said it would be a rewarding experience for her. Ruko, noticing the twin pistols, said he thought he was using his sniper rifle. After using Flying Shield, he threw his shield at him. Pushing off from the ground, Pure Dark Feather slid across the ground under the shield flying at him. Ruko said that he has a pretty strong back. Jumping on Pure Dark Feather, Ruko grabbed his shield. Shielding himself from the shots with his shield, he said with a grin that he didn't hit it. Tilly said she didn't expect this little guy to be so agile. The main character agreed with a grin that he was getting better and he didn't even notice. Using Shield Bash, Ruko hit the ground hard and Pure Dark Feather jumped out of the way. Tilly said that, compared to this guy, Ruko's agility is still not enough. The main character agreed and said that this is not a big problem. Pure Dark Feather started firing his pistols. Ruko shielded himself from the shots with his shield. Rushing forward, Pure Dark Feather hit the ground and Ruko dodged by jumping up. Thrusting his shield forward, he told him to enjoy a shield slap to the face. Jumping forward, Pure Dark Feather said that he was caught. Using Metallic Dance, he kicked the shield, causing Ruko to let go of his shield. Pure Dark Feather started firing his pistols as he got to his feet. The shots hit Ruko all over the body. Frowning, he thought that his attacks were tightly packed. He held out his hand, but was surprised to see a foot approaching. The impact created a large cloud of dust around Ruko. Standing with his back to him, Pure Dark Feather said, "GG." Tilly said that Ruko's strength might be on par with the guys with guns, but unfortunately, his weaknesses were exposed after the guy with guns attacked him. She said it looked like the battle was over. Lengxi said he didn't think so. Eyes that glowed red were visible in the dust cloud. Pure Dark Feather turned around in surprise. The huge Ruko swung a paw while standing in the scattered cloud of dust. Pure Dark Feather wondered what it was. Jumping back, he started shooting at Ruko. Ruko stood with his hands outstretched, taking his shots. His hand moved closer to the Pure Dark Feather. Grabbing it in his hand, he lifted it off the ground. A dialogue box informed Pure Dark Feather that it had lost its ability to move. He gritted his teeth. Ruko said that he advises him to get out his heavy sniper rifle, otherwise he really won't have a chance to win against him. The main character thought that even though Dark Feather would become a #1 long-ranged firearms wielder in the future and possess immeasurable power, he should not underestimate the incredible potential of Ruko. Tilly's exclaimed that she wanted to fight Ruko as well. Grinning, Lingxi thought that this was someone who was and would be one of the 6 divine shields in the future, Sacred Mountain Ruko. As he approached them, he asked if he wanted to fight again using his sniper rifle. Pure Dark Feather replied that there was no need. He suggested that we proceed with the dungeon. The main character suggested that he add each other as friends so that he would add him as a temporary team member. The dialogue box says that he has formed a team. Lingxi said that their goal for this dungeon is simple. He said that they will get a Shadow Killer sniper rifle and at the same time break the record on the special difficulty of the Ancient Machinery Cave dungeon. He said that the minimum required players for this dungeon is exactly 4 people, but that won't be a problem and all they have to do is follow his plan. Ruko asked why they didn't go for the insane difficulty. The main character replied that this is because the rewards are different there. He said that if they pass the insane difficulty of the Ancient Machinery Cave dungeon, provided that all participants have more than half health, then the reward will be Brass Shadow Killer Claymore, which is designed for warriors, and Brass Shadow Killer Sniper Rifle, also known as the Shadow Killer Sniper Rifle, requires them to pass a special one. Difficulty of the dungeon, taking less than 45 minutes to complete. Tilly's asked if it was possible. She reminded that the current record on special difficulty is 1 hour and 27 minutes. She said that they would have to complete the dungeon faster than the record by 42 minutes, which is almost twice as fast as the record. The main character replied that there would be no problems with this. He decided to start preparing to enter the dungeon. Looking at the purple portal in front of them, Pure Dark Feather asked Lingxi how long it would take them to complete this dungeon according to his plans. The main character smiled slightly. He said it would take them 20 minutes. Inside the Ancient Machinery Cave dungeon, the main character's group was standing in a room full of pipes. Ruko pulled the web that the spider was sitting in. The spider ran away, and Ruko exclaimed about how agile it was. Tilly's asked if he was exaggerating too much when he talked about 20 minutes. Lingxi replied that he wasn't exaggerating because they would use a different method. He said that from now on, they will use a strategy that is radically different from the typical one. The main character said that they probably already know that there are 3 mini locations inside the Ancient Machinery Cave dungeon that they will need to go through. He said that each mini location is a floor of a cave, which will eventually lead them to the last floor, the Ancient Humble Great Bridge, and there they will have to defeat the mechanical griffin Kayla. Pure Dark Feather agreed and said that he had teamed up with other people before, hoping to get the Shadow Killer sniper rifle, and in his opinion, their speed was already quite high, but due to the fact that mechanical enemies have a high resistance to physical damage, fighting them took a long time. A lot of time. He said that it ended up taking them 2 hours to complete the dungeon, which is very different from the 45-minute requirement. Tilly's asked how they were going to clean up this route. She asked if he would do it with rush attack or if he had any other ideas. The main character, while climbing the hill, said that even a rush attack would take too long, and the method they would use was quite resourceful, and they would use the map to their advantage. Turning around, he said that they wouldn't need to kill any enemies. Tilly's asked in surprise. The main character replied that that was why he said they would use the map to their advantage. He said that the Ancient Machinery Cave map is different from other dungeon maps because the map of this dungeon is completely preloaded. He explained that, in simple terms, they don't need to go through things like gates, which require waiting for the map to load when they go through to the next floor. Ruko exclaimed that he understood, and it's a seamless map. He said that they can freely walk around the entire map, and they don't have to wait for parts of the map to load. Lingxi said he was right, and while Heavenland has long managed to make the entire game seamless open world, in order to create different gaming experiences, some maps are seamless maps, while some need to be downloaded. Pure Dark Feather stared at his back in silence. He shouted irritably that he had no idea what they were talking about. He demanded to know what they needed to do, not waste time. The main character, holding a torch in his hand, said that it is better to give a simple explanation of the rationale so that they all have an understanding of what is happening when they act. He thought that he didn't expect a professional like Pure Darkfeather to have absolutely no knowledge of the game's mechanics. He told them to look around. The main character said that to create a sense of mystery on this map, there are a lot of holes on the walls, on the floor, and on the ceiling. Tilly said that this makes her somewhat uncomfortable. Ruko said in surprise that he wasn't bothered at all. Lengxi said that she would have to fight this feeling because they would be entering these holes. Tilly stiffened in surprise. Pure Darkfeather asked in surprise about entering the holes. Ruko exclaimed that it sounds like fun. He asked the main character if they were using the holes to avoid opponents, and if so, how they were going to enter the next floor. Lengxi said that they probably don't know that all the thousands of holes here are connected like threads in a spider's web, and one can never know for sure where they will lead. He said that there might be a mechanical enemy hiding in the darkness at the end of the hole, or there might be a dead end, or it might lead to an entrance to another path. He said that no one knows where the holes will lead except No. Tilly stared intently at the main character. Lengxi said that he knew that among these tens of thousands of holes, there was a certain path that would lead them directly to the lower floor. The main character and his group were walking through a cramped tunnel. The main character thought that in his previous life, it took countless players' research to find out, and in the end, it became a cheat of this dungeon because everyone could avoid all enemies with this shortcut, and the dungeon lost its meaning. Frowning, he thought that this shortcut was fixed by a patch after the version update. However, in this life, he is the only one who knows about it. He thought that if he tried to sell this information to others, he would surely be able to make a lot of money, but it was better not to let such shortcuts be discovered by the world so early. Tilly's, looking around, thought that it was a dark, narrow cave that hid unknown wiggly creatures inside. She worried that she was going to die. Seeing a glint in the darkness, she gave a startled cry. She pointed her finger in the direction of the glitter, and the protagonist asked what was wrong. Ryuko with a grin told her to calm down because it's just a small mole that is found everywhere. A small, harmless rodent was sitting in a hole in the cave. Blushing, Tilly's gritted her teeth. Lengxi, looking at her, thought that he had never thought that the usually calm and cool Tilly's could have such a frantic side. Tilly's had a mole sitting on her shoulder, and she irritably asked Ryuko what he was laughing at. Ryuko continued to laugh while looking at her. The main character thought of cocky-looking Pure Darkfeather walking behind them. Smiling, he thought it was an interesting day. He said there were 3 forks in front of them and they would go left. He told everyone to hurry up. In the dark, many toothy monsters were watching the main character's path. The main character motioned for them to be quiet. They continued to move through the cave with the holes. Tilly's looked around anxiously. Ryuko looked at the spider crawling on the wall with a smile. Lengxi said they came, and it's right down this tunnel. He told everyone to jump in. Ryuko, after jumping into the hole, said that he would go first. The main character and Tilly's jumped down after him. Lengxi told Ryuko that he knows he's excited for them to come here, but he needs to calm down because it's dangerous. Ryuko sat up and said in surprise that they actually made it. Lengxi and Tilly's fell to the ground, sending up 2 clouds of dust. Pure Darkfeather fell after them. Tilly's exhaled and said that they were finally out of this narrow space. The main character, raising an eyebrow, replied that he came, but there is one but. Ryuko turned around. Lengxi said that it was better for her to get off him before she started complaining. Blushing, Tilly's noticed that she was sitting on the main character's back. Ryuko laughed as he looked at them. Tilly's asked with a frown where they were. She added that she is confused after all these tunnels. The main character, shaking himself off, began to talk. Pure Darkfeather interrupted him and said that they went horizontally 16 times, but changed their positions vertically 12 times, and most likely this is the lower floor. He said it wasn't just a lower floor, and to his surprise, they came straight to the last boss. Lengxi turned around and thought that he didn't expect anything less from Pure Darkfeather, and its spatial awareness is simply terrifying. He thought that he was able to figure out their location even after going through all these tunnels. Pure Darkfeather, coming to the edge of the bridge, said that he recognized this underground river, and this is the Humble River, which is located on the lower floor of the dungeon. He said that he didn't expect that he actually knew a shortcut that would lead them directly to the lower floor. Below them was a tumultuous river. Looking to the side, Pure Darkfeather said that judging from the building nearby, there should be a boss lair above them. Humble Mechanical Guardian, Subterraneous Kayla, the ancient Humble Great Bridge. A purple griffin in steel armor was sleeping with its eyes closed. Its clawed feet rested on a pillar. Ryuko glanced at the griffon from behind the pillar. Frowning, he said it looked bad. Humble Mechanical Guardian, Subterraneous Kayla was sleeping on the bridge. It had orange wings. While hanging from the bridge, Ryuko told Lengxi that this boss is too strong and looks incredibly strong and impenetrable. The main character replied that they wouldn't need to fight this thing directly. Tilly said 12 minutes had passed, and the 20 minutes he was talking about were 8 minutes away. Taking the staff in her hands, she told him to stop wasting time and tell her his plan because she was ready. The main character turned around. Closing his eyes, he told her he didn't need her help yet. Tilly's asked irritably. The main character told Pure Dark Feather that only he can perfectly complete the first stage of the plan. Tilly's asked irritably why only he could do this. A rifle appeared on Pure Dark Feather's back, and he assumed that from where he had led them, his target was there. A purple tail hung from the top of the bridge. He said that his target is the griffin's tail. The main character replied that this is true, and that heavy sniper rifles definitely have enough range to do this. He told him to use his sniper rifle to shoot from a safe distance. Ling Si said that just one shot is enough and the boss will become hostile and turn aggro on them, however it won't be able to attack them and will go back. Pure Dark Feather picked up the rifle and said he didn't know how he came up with it, but he would go and see if it really worked. Ling Si said to trust him. He told everyone to take their places and remember to use single attack skills as often as possible. He explained that the tail is the boss weak point, and the higher the damage, the better. Pure Dark Feather took aim with a sniper rifle. The dialogue box reported that the weapon had been changed to an explosive bomb. Ruko asked what the three of them should do, and if they would really just stand there and do nothing. The main character replied that this was true, and they were only here to meet the requirement for the number of participants. He told him not to worry, because they would all have important roles in the next dungeons. Tilly said irritably that it was a waste of her time. Pure Dark Feather asked if he could attack. Ling Si replied affirmatively with a smile. Pure Dark Feather fired a sniper rifle. The shot went straight for the griffin's tail. When the bullet hit its target, there were many explosions near the griffon, and it woke up with a loud sound as it spread its wings. Ling Si said that he had been shot and was about to fly straight to them. The griffin flew up in the air, and the main character said that he was coming. Grinning, he said that this lion-eagle monster wouldn't be able to find a target to attack because they were hiding under the bridge, and it would soon return to the same place where it was. The griffon looked around in disbelief as it hovered over the bridge. Pure Dark Feather noticed something, and Ling Si asked if something is wrong. Pure Dark Feather grinned down the rifle scope. He started shooting profusely at the griffon and said that he would take advantage of the moment when the griffon returns to its location to deal more damage. He added that he wished swift ammunition did a lot of damage. The main character thought that he was not bad and caught the rhythm of Subterraneous Kayla very quickly. Ruko scratched his head and said that he suddenly felt sorry for this boss. Tilly's called him an ignorant little kid. Ruko frowned and asked irritably who she was calling a child. She asked if he had passed through this dungeon before. She said Subterraneous Kayla is usually a nightmare for glass cannons like mages and archers, and she never expected Ling Si's shady tactics to actually work. The main character, laughing, agreed and said that Subterraneous Kayla is especially hostile against ranged attacks, and at the same time specializes in aiming at players from afar and using attacks with sound waves. He said that mages and archers can't deal high damage to him due to all these circumstances. Ling Si said that once Kayla targeted them, they wouldn't even have time to escape, and a player with a weapon like the Pure Dark Feather sniper rifle would be targeted before they finished preparing. Pure Dark Feather thought that the last time he went through this dungeon, he didn't even get a chance to pull out his rifle, and he had to deal damage with his twin pistols, and they had to rely on melee attacks to lower the boss's health little by little. He thought that he would never have guessed such a strategy, using the environment to make the boss move so that it could confidently deal ranged damage. He thought that the fact that this Ling Si was able to come up with such a method was interesting. The main character was calmly looking ahead. He thought that if he wasn't mistaken, Pure Dark Feather fired 4 times per minute, which meant that in 8 minutes, he would deal 30 odd shots, and he would also deal extra damage when he understood Subterraneous Kayla's rhythm on his own. Ruko mockingly said that the boss had turned around again and he wouldn't be able to find them. The main character thought that the damage of a heavy sniper rifle was initially very high, and if you take into account the fact that the tail is a weak point of the boss and high additional damage is obtained, then they should not have any problems. Ling Si noticed that Pure Dark Feather ran in front of him and said that this was the right place. Ling Si and Ruko asked in surprise what he was doing. Pure Dark Feather lay down on the floor, peeking out from under the bridge from below. Looking through the scope of his rifle, he replied that he was saving time. He shot at the griffin's tail, and the main character exclaimed that he had hit the tail. Pure Dark Feather said that it wasn't a big deal, and while dealing extra damage, he noticed that the time it took for the boss to turn around and leave the bridge on the way back was enough for him to take another shot, and he thought he could take another shot and shoot twice at a time to save time. Ling Si thought in surprise that he managed to take advantage of the few seconds that required the boss to leave the bridge to fire again. Ruko said it sounds very impressive. Pure Dark Feather said that there is a 0.3 second gap after the swift ammunition is fired. The main character, frowning, thought that he had an incredible judgment because he was able to understand this and execute it perfectly after one shot. He thought that he had never heard anything like this even in his previous life, and everyone always fired one shot at a time. He thought that he didn't expect Pure Dark Feather to be able to use focused shot in the short amount of time after using swift ammunition, and as expected of pure Dark Feather, its control of timing and keen sense of perception are impressive. Ruko noticed that the boss was coming back again. After pure Dark Feather realized that he was about to fire 2 shots at a time, the estimated time of 20 minutes was reduced by 4 minutes. Pure Dark Feather, holding a sniper rifle in his hand, said, "GG." Ling Si and his group were standing near the fallen griffin. As a result, they completed the special difficulty of the Ancient Machinery Cave dungeon in just 16 minutes. Pure Dark Feather was able to get the equipment he wanted, the Shadow Killer sniper rifle. The main character thought that setting a new record for completing a special difficulty dungeon wouldn't attract much attention, and their first collaboration would end peacefully, but even he didn't expect that their almost superhuman dungeon speed would fuel a terrifying discussion on the game's forum. There were topics of discussion on the forum. How did they clear the dungeon in 16 minutes? Which team is this? Did they use a cheat? Soon after, countless teams of all levels began to challenge their small team of 4.